thank you so much. And we'll go ahead and get started. I know this is Bhanu, for those of you who don't know him. He works for Richland County, and I know you guys are interested in learning about mobile apps and Xamarin, so we're going to turn the time over to you.
Yeah. Good evening, everyone. And I'm the Applications and Development Manager at Richland County. We build like websites, mobile apps, and of course, we also do some data warehousing with Cognos and stuff like that. And we are looking for programmer 1 position, and also we also have a DBA position. So if you guys are interested, apply for it. We also have some cool projects we are going to try in future, like also try to do some stuff with Alexa and stuff like that. So we have a lot of applications, and our goal is to constantly serve the citizens with the new applications and stuff like that. So check out our site. So today's talk is one of the things we have done for the county employees. It is about the lost pet animal care web app using Xamarin. These are the goals for the presentation. Is like I'm going to go into the basic introduction. Then after that, what is Xamarin is, and why we pick Xamarin, what are the advantages of it. Then go into the mobile app, like what we did, how we built it. Then I'm going to talk about the deployment. Like once you build it, you want the people to be able to use it and stuff like that, and how we deployed it. So before I get into the mobile app stuff, I want to tell a story. This is supposed to be a true story according to my parents. In India, I think Indians know they do something called arranged marriage. They had set a date for arranged marriage for my parents, and a week before their marriage, a cyclone came and hit the city in which my mom and my grandparents were there. So, and my grandparents they were living in a house that was not cyclone safe. The roof could have been blown away. They had to go to basically a shelter, so they could be protected. And when they were going, walking all the way to the shelter, and my grandma was carried away by the cyclone winds, and the family dog Tiger, she hold her sari and pulled her to safety. So if my grandma passed away, then my parents wouldn't have got married, and if they didn't get married, I wouldn't be there. So because of the dog, Tiger, I'm here. So that's why dogs, I'm a pet owner, dogs have a special thing in my mind. So that is one of the first story I want to start off with. So why did we choose this project at the county? We chose this project because animal care department in the county, the employees, they work in a field. In the county, the dogs get lost everywhere, or the cats get lost. So these people have to go like 10 miles, 20 miles to pick up pets and stuff like that. So they're in the field a lot. It is not practical for them to every day go enter the stuff on a paper, come back to office, enter in a computer. A lot of their time is getting wasted. And then anyone who's a pet owner, they know losing of a pet is a very stressful experience. You want to find your pet as soon as possible. So those are the major reasons for which we chose this project. So as we all know, what are mobile applications? Mobile applications are basically the software programs which work on mobile devices. It could be your iOS device, or it could be iPad or Android and stuff like that. So that's what the mobile applications are. So with the mobile applications, there is a lot of native development. Like with the native development is you use like iOS or Android, you use Xcode, and you also use Objective-C and the Swift are your programming languages. That's how you do the native development. And for Android, the IDE is Eclipse, and you use Java. And the IDE I use for Android, I took a class for the Android development, Android Studio. That's pretty good. I use that too. So these are the various things which are recommended, and that's what people are using right now for the native development. One of the main challenges for the mobile app development is whoever has worked with mobile apps knows that you have to have one code base for iPhone, you have to have one code base for Android, and everyone knows the screen sizes. I have an iPhone, I have an iPad, I have an Android tablet, and number of screen sizes, they keep changing a lot, right? Then you also see the operating systems. The operating systems, I think Android has released about 8 or 9 of them. I think it's up to 5 or something. The operating systems keep changing. iOS operating systems keep changing. It is too much for mobile app developers to keep up with. Uh, so, and then other things also is like any programmers we know, like a lot of operating systems also get patches and updates and stuff like that. So those are one of the major challenges mobile app developers face is like there are too many changes which go on, too many devices, too many code bases and stuff like that. So a lot of the people have been coming up with the idea is like, hey, what can we do, right? And one of the things they talked about is cross-platform. Like, how can we build in one, or how can we try to share code across multiple devices so we don't have to have multiple code bases? How can we do that? So these are like about the five popular ones. One of the first ones which came out is called PhoneGap. PhoneGap, it came out for many app platforms, about 8 of them. It was popular initially. Ionic is pretty popular. Uh, I work with my friends a little bit on the Ionic. It uses HTML, CSS, JavaScript, AngularJS. React Native, again HTML, CSS, JavaScript, and React. Cordova, the new version of PhoneGap, it uses HTML, CSS, JavaScript. And last but not the least, Xamarin, which uses Visual.Studio with C#. So these are primarily the 5 major ones out there. And there may be some of the other ones out there, but these are the 5 major ones out there. So Xamarin is a company which were building the controls and for the mobile app development. For a while, they were their own company. And a year or two ago, Microsoft acquired Xamarin. So now it's part of Microsoft. Um, so then what happened is like in our shop, we picked Xamarin because we have a lot of developers who are very good in C#. And so we don't have to teach people Objective-C. We don't have to teach people Java and stuff like that. So we could leverage a lot of the C# existing knowledge. And Xamarin is already part of Visual.Studio, so we don't have to buy additional licenses and stuff like that. So it was good for us financially, and we already had the developers who had skill set in it. And of course, they have to learn how to code for Xamarin, but they don't have to learn a totally brand new language. As any of you who are programmers who know that building an application is only a very small part of the process. When you build application, it has to be deployed, it has to be stable. After 3 months, 6 months, for some reason it crashes, you have to be able to debug it. And whoever developers, like every developer, Java or Objective-C, they develop a certain skill set, like how to debug or maintain production applications. For me, that is very important because you just don't chase technology for sake of chasing technology. It is like how you build application and how you make changes really fast. And all that stuff worked for us, and so we picked Xamarin. And we have about 3 apps with Xamarin so far. We have like 2 internal apps, and we have one in the App Store called RC Winds. So we have released almost 3 apps so far. So one of the advantage, again, if you have questions, let me know. Uh, One of the advantages of Xamarin is it gives you the power of Microsoft Visual Studio base class libraries. So when you have .NET Framework already comes with the streams, I/O, XML, databases, all this stuff. So all these APIs are already there. So there is no reason for programmers to reinvent the wheel. So like a lot of your data access and everything, you can put your data access layer, your services and stuff like that. You can reuse like a lot of your .NET, calculations and everything. And it's like you're sharing a lot of code. You're already building on very powerful .NET APIs. And and I also love C# as a language. One of the features I love is link. I've been able to cut down like 50, 100 lines of code into a couple of lines of code. So C# is a beautiful language. It has so many features that makes your life a lot easier. So that's one of the reasons also we like Xamarin. One of the advantages Xamarin has is it has interop. That means like you can call the libraries of Objective-C or Java, and you can call them in your Xamarin projects. So, and Xamarin basically uses binding to bind to the native libraries and to SDKs. And the advantage of that is like if there is say a special map feature or something which is there in iOS and you want to use in your application, you can use it. So you're already writing your code in C#, but you're also leveraging other powerful libraries which other people have built upon. So that's another big advantage of Xamarin. So one of the tools we used for development is Visual Studio 2017, and we used uh, Microsoft Emulator for Android, and to build the Xamarin apps for Apple. Apple locks down everything. They want to protect their environment. They have a lot of rules, uh, and you do need a Mac, and the Mac needs to be on the network, uh, and the Mac needs to have Xcode, uh, and you need to have a developer license. So it goes on. Apple has like a lot of rules. I have an Apple phone. I love Apple stuff, but I also understand why they set the rules. They want to have uniformity and stuff like that. But they do have a lot of rules. Uh, uh, so you need a Mac and all that stuff. And one of the interesting things is like the software is called Emulator for Android. It's called Simulator for Mac when it launches. Um, then the platform we used is called Xamarin Forms. Uh, so Xamarin Forms is one of the flavors of Xamarin which is available. You can also write native applications in Xamarin for Android and also for iOS. And but we use Xamarin Forms. Uh, I'll get to it later because it helps us to share code. It takes the code sharing to the next level. So we use Xamarin Forms. Um, and we also used Hockey App. Hockey App is like when you build applications, you want to deploy to the users. Uh, there are basically primarily two ways in which you can release the applications. One is you can put it in your app stores, either your iPhone App Store or iPhone App Store or Android Play Store. Uh, and then when you release it, you need to have like a developer account in those stores to release it. But when you are a big organization like a county or a government or a business, you can have your own enterprise app store. And then we have our own enterprise app store in which we have released 2 apps. Uh, so to really, and we automated the whole build to TFS. Uh, so we use Hockey App for that. So advantages is like we don't have to go through the Apple approval process. Like sometimes we can push changes in a day or two. So the users, if something is down, they don't have to wait for a week or 2 weeks, the whole process. But you also have one app in the Apple App Store. So this is uh, how the compilation happens on the Xamarin. Like with the Apple side, it uses something called AOT compilation model. Then it goes into native code. And that is one of the reasons for which it needs a Mac and Xcode. Without that, it will not work. But in the case of Android, it goes to intermediate language and it uses just-in-time compilation. So that's why it doesn't, you can even build it without using an Android device. So that is the primarily two different compilation differences between the Apple and Android. And again, that's how Apple does stuff, and we have to follow the rules. Any questions so far? This is the environment setup. Like we install Visual Studio. When you're installing Visual Studio, you have to select this mobile app development with .NET. So one of the features you have to select. I also have installed on my personal laptop also, on a work laptop, I installed 2019. I've not fully tried out yet. It's pretty much similar selection. Then you have to select the emulator for Android. And when you are working with Mac, for the Apple debugging, you have to set up a user, and that user will needs to have enabled like a remote sharing, and then that Mac needs to be on the same network as the laptop or your work computer you're working on, and then they both need to talk to each other. So as you can see in here, we went to remote login, and we created login, and then we connect the PC on which the Visual Studio 20 Visual Studio is installed to the Mac. Yeah, Windows machine. Yeah, that's a good point. So when you are developing on a Mac, I also had installed Visual Studio for the Mac. I think I also tried, like at one point, tried Xamarin Studio. I don't think we don't, not a whole lot of changes are coming to that. But if you use Visual Studio for the Mac, you don't need to do that. You can directly, if you're using a Mac, you can directly do that. But for the Windows, this is required. Yeah. Uh, not a whole lot actually. Yeah, the session is there. But one thing I can say is like periodically the after certain idle time, that connection will drop, and you'll have to reconnect back again, or the simulator will crash or something. You have to close the simulator down and bring it back up again. And also saw like recently you can also push actually yesterday I saw a video like now previously you need to have a cable, a USB cable to push it to the device. Now you're even like there are some setups where you can directly wirelessly push it to the mobile device now. There's a lightning lecture on YouTube how to do that. So it is getting better and better, but it's still little not as easy as you do it for Android. It will take a little more time. Yes. Yeah, if you have the budget for it. Yeah. Yeah, if you have a budget for it. One of the things is like for us, uh, uh, Mac, they cannot add Mac to the network. Then what do I do? Go to my network team and say, okay, I'm building my .NET stuff. How do I build my service? How do I build my? How do I get to my management studio? Everything. Then you know, as a programmer, you need multiple monitors. You can't just work on one. It is awesome to have two. Sometimes it's awesome to have three, right? So you need multiple monitors. All those things happen, and that's why like, okay, I can't get to my databases. I can't get to. But if you are a personal, device, or if you're a fully Mac shop or something, or if you learn parallels or something, uh, then maybe, yeah. It depends upon your organization and how friendly they are to the Mac. My organization is, yeah, they say, why have you come here with a fruit? If I go ask them about Mac, why are you getting your fruit? Yeah, so, yeah, so there is a little bit of pushback with the for the Mac. Uh, I think, but for your personal thing, I would even recommend like even the new ones. If you can even go all serverless, with Azure serverless, and you can build stuff really even AWS serverless, so you can directly only focus on the UI. Um, and there are a lot of nice articles online how to do that. If you're doing for personal stuff, you can do it really fast and really cool, and you don't have to worry about servers. It can scale up and down and all that stuff. So Xamarin Forms is basically uh, one UI to rule them all kind of thing. As you can see, it will work with iOS, which is for like mobile devices, or the Android devices, OS X, which is for the MacBooks, and Windows. I don't know. I don't think anyone uses Windows Phone anymore. Uh, but if anyone still really wants to do that for them, yeah. Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, desktop apps. Yeah. Uh, That's a good thing. I think a lot of point of sale which go on a surface kind of thing. Yeah, that's one where they can use it. Um, so that's the idea of Xamarin Forms is use C# and use XAML for the layouts. Uh, so you don't. But if you're going to go with the native Android or native iOS, it's almost very similar. Like for the iOS, you have to do storyboarding, you have to fix the layouts and all that stuff. On Xamarin, it's same. And if you were to go on the other side, you have to do your layouts, your activities, intents. Everything is very similar, but you do it everything in C#. But we pick forms because we don't have to do all that stuff. We do everything in C# and we do XAML. There is a place for the native apps for iOS and Android. Like if you were to do like really heavy device stuff, lot of even maps and everything is also now has come to forms. But if you're doing very heavy device stuff, and if you're looking for high performance, then you probably should go for Xamarin, iOS or Android, and you can have like two different code bases. Uh, and sometimes if you want to do any custom, like say you could have like one of our apps has like push notifications, and the push notifications are done differently for Android, and they are done differently for iOS. So then that custom code had to be put in like each of those individual native apps. So there is a place for it, but most of the simple, if you are storing a form, you are retrieving the data and stuff like that, you can do it in form. So Xamarin Forms, when you create it, you pick like a cross-platform application here. When you go ahead and create the application, it basically creates called a portable class library, and then it creates the Android app, and then it creates the iOS app. And the screen is not that clear, but basically the portable class library is where you do your XAML and you do your C# code behind, and any Android specific stuff you put it here, any iOS specific stuff you put it here. It will be three. When you go and you pick this one, it creates like three projects. Yeah. Yeah. When you run as Android, you set Android as a startup project, then it will fire up the Android emulator. And when you set up a iOS one, it is going to fire the simulator on the MacBook. Yeah. So uh, for which one? No, you start a startup project. When you're running your Android app, you right click and you run this and it fires up Android app. Basically what it is, this app is calling that UI. Yeah. Yeah. So basically this app, right now we are running Android app, right? And that is calling the screens from the portable here. And then when you run this one as a startup project, the simulator will fire and it will call the stuff from here. So the screens are similar. And if you have any push notifications, custom ones, you come and put it here, or you can any custom ones, you put it here. And one of the things they talk about is like the way in which you call the phone number. Like the phone number calls are different, then you put it here and you put it here. So it is like basically there are two different apps. For Android, it's its own app, and iOS its own app, because everything is different. There are two different operating systems, two different libraries, SDKs. It is like one is talking English and other is talking probably Telugu or something different, totally different language and culture and everything, totally different. Yeah. So the architecture of Xamarin Forms is pretty uh, straightforward. Uh, the goal of the Xamarin Forms architecture is to reuse a lot of your existing code, you know, your data layer, your data access layer, business, the service layer. Even if you come to the service layer, all it is like your services are basically returning JSON, right? It even like a lot of you could be even using any type of backend or stuff like that. You know, you could be using your Java backends or you could use your other backends. Uh, but as long as they're returning JSON, that's what we do. And even when you're doing applications and everything, I tell my developers everything, make sure everything is returning JSON, consuming JSON. We have our GIS department. They do a lot of open source stuff. It doesn't matter. You know, we do .NET and C#. JSON is a common language, uh, so it keeps everything easy. So data layer is all the database stuff. Data access is to get the data back. In one of the applications, uh, we use stored procs a lot. In one of them, we use more of entity framework and stuff like that. And business layer, all the calculation service layer. We used in one application, we used Web API. For this one, for the RC for the lost pet one, we wrote Web API. And we for the security purpose, we have an internal service, and then we have an external service that goes outside the firewall, and then the app calls the external service. And then the application layer is any platform specific code, like notifications, anything. And the UI layer is the layouts in XAML and C# code behind. XAML, XAML, XAML. Yeah. Um, I don't see a reason why you cannot use an XML, but I would prefer to use JSON because everyone uses JSON. Uh, you have to write a lot more logic to get your XML and to parse the nodes and everything. So it's a lot more easier, you know. Again, building applications is only a small thing. Like when you are stuck, you want to look for examples online and stuff like that. Almost every example online is using JSON, and you are struggling try to use XML. You want to, I think I recommend using JSON, so you stay with everyone else, and not a lot of people are, yeah, using that much. You use XML. We do use XML for older apps and stuff like that. When we get like when the businesses are talking to each other, you're validating against the schema and stuff like that. Um, yeah, legacy stuff we use XML, but the new stuff all goes on JSON. Yeah. So here is how the Xamarin PCL breakdown. As you can see, a lot of the shared code. You have your data layer, the data access layer, the service layer, and business. All this stuff is in C#. Or so so it could be all this stuff could be in C#, and it could be used by your web apps. If you could have like an MVC website, or if you could have your MVC website, or you could have even your web forms website, you know, all the stuff is there. And then you can just build Xamarin apps on top of it. Like you can have iOS app or Android app or a Windows app. So this is the advantage of Xamarin is like, and if you were to see, we have hundreds of applications. We have so many, a lot of stuff, and so all the stuff is reusable. So that's the advantage of it. And here is the PCL class layout. As you can see, it's in XAML. It is similar to XML, but it's a Microsoft version of XML. And you declare your controls, you declare your layouts, like what type of layouts you use. Uh, you say your colors, everything. One of the um, advantages or disadvantages of the Xamarin Forms is you can't look at the UI. You have to write a code in XAML, then you have to keep tweaking it till you get what you want. Uh, but if you go with the native apps of the iOS or Android in Xamarin, you can look at the UI. Like you drop a control, a label, a text box, a table view or something, you can see it. But with the forms, they don't have a layout. You just have to, yeah, you just have to go get the sample, keep tweaking it, fire up your simulator or emulator, and till you get what you want, you have to just keep working at it. But you save time you don't have to do double UIs, but this is one of the challenges. It would be nice if they had the layout one, but they don't. Uh, so this is how the Xamarin for Android code looks like. As you can see, it looks like pretty much, if you were to go to Android native project, it looks pretty similar, the activity, the intent and stuff like that, but the code is written in C#. This is how the code looks. It's the C# code for the Xamarin Android. And this one you can see, again, Xamarin iOS project. If you were to go for Objective-C, the lot of naming looks like the same app delegate and everything, like UI. For the Xamarin iOS, they use MVC layout. So a lot of the stuff, model view controller layout they use, it looks very similar, but as you can see, the language is C#. So, and again, that is other reason also to learn MVC, even if you want to learn how the Xamarin for iOS, if you're good with MVC, if you want to write a Xamarin iOS native app, your learning curve will be a lot smaller. And then for the layout, uh, they use a storyboard. You drop your controls, you set your how far it has to be from this direction, everything, all that stuff. So that is the advantage of that. So after the introduction, now I'm going to get to the app we built. This is the Lost Pet app. So what happens is like there may be a pet which is lost, there may be a cat in a trap, there may be a dog running on a street, or maybe a dog had 3 or 4 puppies in some location. Uh, then citizens call in. When the citizens call in, that's where like they get a request. Then they get a request, and we have a request tracking system, and then these people, uh, like animal care department has about 10 to 12 people. There are 6 people, 5 to 6 people are officers. Then they have to go in the county vehicle. They have to go 5, 10, 20 miles wherever. They have to go pick up the pets. They have to do a lot of paperwork uh, where where they picked up the pet, the location, and all that stuff. Um, and then once they pick up the pet information, the pet information needs to be published to a website, so people can go look at the website and stuff like that, where the pets are lost and stuff like that. And then, and if they have done their job, if they went to that location and they picked up the lost pet and stuff like that, then they say, okay, I have done this, so they want to close the request out in the app. Uh, then Then we also have implemented a social media feature, which is not live yet, but we have it implemented. It is like if the clerk decides so and so pet has been lost, we post that lost pet's picture to the Facebook and Twitter page automatically. So more people can, if they follow the page, they can go look at the pet's information and they can try to help people find pets. And so county people can look at the not only can they look at the website, but they can also look at the Facebook and Twitter. But that is not live yet. Uh, but we have all that stuff implemented right now. So as you can see, why did we add the social media feature? And you can see the world map here. Uh, all the place where it lights up is like where all Facebook users are. And you can see how many people, like the stuff these days goes viral, like someone posts some weird video or they do something like cash me outside or some crazy stuff and then now they are millionaires. Uh, so the stuff spreads really fast on social media. And so we want people at some point to be able to find their own lost pets and stuff like that. Um, so that's why we added the social media feature to that. And here is the app, and also log into the computer and show the app itself. Um, Here is the app. As you can see, the first screen is the login screen, where the animal care employee, they log in, uh, and then they enter their credentials. And once they enter the credentials, they log into the app. As soon as they log into the app, they see like what are all the pets that has been lost um, in the various locations. Like here, the dog has been abandoned on March 19th, uh, and then once they look at that, they look at the address, the location. They get in a county vehicle. They go to the location. They pick up the animal. They enter all the paperwork. Um, they add all the pet information. It has been picked up at so and so street. They take a photo of the pet, uh, and or they can take a picture from add the picture from the gallery, uh, and then they add all this information, street number, so many stuff like pet type, which shelter they picked up, all this stuff they add it. Uh, they add a new animal, and then here we have implemented a feature. If they decide to post it to social media, as you can see, post the animal to Facebook or Twitter, or post the animal to the county website. And if sometimes they pick up puppies, if they pick up a puppy, the puppy can be like they want to make a clone of the records. Like they could be a same litter and they want to have like 5 puppies, so they want to boom 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 copy the same. So it could be the same puppy and the same breed and everything. You want to save them time. So we have that feature here. They create a duplicate animal and they need special comments and they submit. So if they decide to post on social media, uh, these are the pages we have set up for them. Uh, and we use the tweetin VI API. We post to Twitter and Twitter posts to Facebook. We created the Facebook pages, and when you create a Facebook page and Twitter page, you get app ID, app token, and all that stuff, authentication, and you have to set all that stuff up. And when you set it up, then automatically it starts posting. This is the picture of the dog, and this is the dog breed, and all that stuff to social media. So we have that implemented. So once they have entered all the information, once they have picked up everything, we have a summary screen where they see like what is all the pet summary, like we picked up who is the officer, what is the status, what time they picked up, location, and they can decide like previously what they used to do is like they used to go in the field like 5-10 miles out, and they used to enter it in a piece of paper. They used to take photos on some digital camera. They would come back to the office at the end of the day, and then from their digital camera, they would load all the photos, and then at the end of the day, they would enter all the stuff which they entered in the paper, in the website, and then they would go home. That was pretty tedious, you know. Um, and Richland County is a big county, it's a huge county. Uh, so they can now close the requests on the field itself. They don't have to come back to the county offices to do that. And we save them ton of time. That's awesome because now they're able to go pick up more pets and help more dogs and cats and stuff like that. So that is something we are really proud of. Here I'm going to go into the review of the UI. I'm going to talk about uh, one control and show you guys how we did it. Like as you can see on the add new animal, we have the city drop down, and I'm going to go into like how we have added all the way from the UI to the service. So like you can see, if you are a C# or a web forms developer, it is pretty straightforward. Of course, nothing is ever easy, but it is pretty straightforward. The learning curve is a lot smaller. So here is the layout for the drop down. Like we have a city picker, which is basically a drop down list. And it's a XAML layout. We set the color, the grid, the column, enable, and all that stuff. And as you can see, it has a function that loads it. And then if you go to the code, we have a function called populate city in the C#. Like what happens is, so we have your XAML where the layout is there, and in XAML.cs is where you write your loading code. Like just like if you're a web forms developer, it's pretty much you have a code behind. Uh, you know, or if you are an MVC guy, you have your Razor, and and you have your whatever your controllers and your views where you write your C# stuff. So it pretty much Microsoft, how they like to do the separation, pretty straightforward. Now here we have external service, and we are calling the external service. We call it async function, and then boom, we just call all the cities. A simple C# function goes and gets all the cities, and divide it up to the UI in the drop down, and it's ready to go. And this is the service call on the service layer. Like as I've said, we use JSON, we use Web API, and here is getting the Web API is getting get HTTP client, and it's just returning the JSON for all the city list. And we also, for safety and security, we call this external service calls the internal service. Internal service calls the data access, and that calls stored procs, and then that goes to a database. So we have multiple layers for security, but you can do entity framework on the other data access stuff if you want to save time. But sometimes what happens, so that is the basic how easy it is to wire up the control on Xamarin. And here sometimes what happens is not all the stuff which comes from like Xamarin, you have like a lot of controls, but sometimes you want to write some custom logic. Like say here, like we have a logic we have written here for how to get the, if the user is idle for a certain amount of time, we just don't want the user to be there. So in Xamarin, there are some functions like on resume, on start, on sleep. So here in here we wrote a function like say after a certain amount of time, just log out the user. We check the time, how much time the idle time is there. So you can go into the C# and at this function levels, like on start, on sleep, and then you can decide to either log out and do the stuff like that. So you can write your own custom logic too. So once you have started writing your mobile app, how do you test the mobile app? One of the things you have to do is for the Android, you have to install the right SDKs. You have to install the right emulators. And here is the Samsung emulator. Like once you you have to make sure that the emulator, the SDKs are all installed, and then you start it. Then the emulator on your machine starts, and then you are ready to start using it. Sometimes it is faster to use it on the mobile app, mobile phone itself. So it depends. Like sometimes if you have a really powerful computer, you can use an emulator. You don't need any Android device. Some people like they use uh, the device itself. You have to turn on the debugging feature on the device and stuff like that. Um, and there are also some controls like there's some services I think I used at some point called Genymotion and stuff like that, where you can test your devices in the cloud and stuff like that. But some of the stuff is not free. You have to work out, you have to look at how much it costs and all that stuff. So this is the Visual Studio emulator for Android. Once you fire up, it launches. Then you can test your app on the emulator. So now I'm down to the iOS workflow. As I said with Apple, nothing. You need a Mac. You need Xcode. You can't escape that. Uh, you have Visual Studio, and then you start off with Xamarin iOS for Visual Studio, and then if you're on Windows, then that connects to the Xamarin Mac agent, and that calls Xamarin iOS SDK, and that calls Xcode. And one of the things you have to do when you work with Apple stuff is you have to set up your provisioning profiles for your developer and for your production. You have to set up your profiles. Sometimes you have to set up the profiles for you, or you have to set up the profiles for the team. So, yeah, Apple takes you have to do some work, and you have to be patient, and you have to just work through it. Um, yeah, they do demand certain amount of things, and so when you are testing the app for the Mac, uh, you fire up in the Visual Studio. I'll show in the Visual Studio there is a certain location in which you go and you link up your Visual Studio on Windows to the Mac. Then after that, it will fire up there. And of course, if you're using Xamarin, I think Visual Studio for Mac, you don't have to do it. Everything will work there. But if you're using Windows machine, you have to first link both of them up. The handshake needs to be there. And even before that, you have to go to the Mac. You have to set up your user. That user has to be remote shared, and they need to be on the same network. All that stuff has to be set up for it to work if you want to debug it. Yeah. It depends, right? If everything is running from your machine, and if you're using a SQLite, or even if you're using a JSON as your database, it will run from anywhere. Or if you're using your cloud services, it will run from your Mac, everything. But in our case, we have a SQL server that sits inside the firewall, and then we have a services server which sits inside the firewall. Uh, so none of the stuff works, and so we have to use Windows. We don't have a choice. But if you're using for your own personal stuff, you can do it many ways. You could do it that way. You can do it on AWS. You can use it Azure, serverless, AWS serverless, Azure databases. Lot of different ways. You can do everything on Mac, uh, or you can do. I think on Mac you can do parallels, and you can run Windows on Mac to that. Um, mhm. Yeah, Mac in the cloud. Hmm. Yeah, yeah. But I would say if you want to do iOS development, get a Mac. It's a Yeah, it's a beautiful piece of hardware. I have it. Uh, Sometimes it frustrates the heck out of me, but but I do like it. I do like having one. Yeah, yeah, yeah. I think we can. Even the other day, only one. Yeah, only one. But one thing I would say is I may be wrong because yeah, last night I watched a video where they talked about how you can have multiple devices which can go wirelessly. So maybe if those devices on the Wi-Fi and the Bluetooth enabled, and because in the video the guy had connected to an Apple Watch, and he also had connected to the Apple TV. So probably it may work, but I've not tried it. Yeah, 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 yeah. But that's just how the way they do it. And, and this is how the deployment model. You have to create an Apple ID. Uh, you have to get enrolled in Apple developer program. I think we have two ways of deployment at the county. One is we have a RC Winds, an app which goes into the App Store for citizens and stuff like that. And that is a regular Apple because it's like a commercial app. Any people can go get to it. That's some $99 thing. And then we have an enterprise app store license. Our boss had to talk to them. We had to get in a big conference call, and we had to prove them that we are not a fake business. Pay about $400. Uh, they checked our website and all that stuff. They gave us other license, and now we can push for the animal care app. We can even, for a day, we can do 2 or 3 builds, and boom, we made a change. We can push it. We add a screen, we can push it. But the other one, RC events, we go to the app store. It has a whole list of directions you have to follow. Uh, all the icons, images have to be correct. Everything, the whole certification process. Then after that, it goes into something called a test flight, and you have to test your stuff in test flight. Once it passes the test flight, then it releases. Um, so yeah, it takes time. Uh, so, but if you have a big organization, I think like Scana or huge ones, and you're only giving it to your internal users, and you don't want your internal users to wait 2 3 weeks because you cannot tell your internal users, yeah, it's going to the Apple store, and you can also not tell citizens to not use it. You know, it doesn't make any sense if the animal care app is been created for the animal care employees. Why is it there in the app store anyway? It makes no sense. Uh, so if you're a huge organization and if you can prove it to them, you get your own enterprise app store. Uh, it will be a lot quicker. You can do your own deployments with your regular TFS, GitHub builds, so much easier. Um, and of course, you have to create a development certificate, and you also have to create a production certificate. You have to create provisioning profiles and all that stuff. It takes time, and I would recommend when you do it, document it, uh, and you will forget, you will move on. It's not fun, uh, but you can even give it to other people. They will do it. Document this process, especially with the Apple stuff, because you'll not figure it out immediately. It will take you a few times to figure it out, document it, take screenshots. Your life will be easier. Uh, and of course, all Visual Studio developers know about NUGET, and we used Hockey app NUGET package, which is available. Hockey app does have an expiration date. I think at November or something, it's going away. It's going to be replaced by Visual Studio something. I got some email about that. We do need to migrate to it, but Hockey app works perfectly fine. You can have about five applications in there for free. After 5, you have to pay. Uh, and the hockey app is directly linked to our TFS. So if you go to TFS 2017, we have that, and then we go up and we're linked up. There's a hockey app um, tool in the TFS. We linked it up, and then boom, well, just goes to the TFS website. We push a build, then it's there. Then in the hockey app, you can see all the uh, builds we pushed, and if it crashes, you can look at why it crashed. You get the stack trace and everything, so you can be proactive. If it's crashing, you can, you know, you can you can uh, you can make the changes. Uh, this is the important slide. This is the time we saved for the county. The county has about 772 square miles, and the animal care department has about 7 zones. And every day, about 5 to 6 officers go in the field. Uh, at the end of the day, it would take them an average 30 minutes to come back to the office, and they would again had to enter all the stuff like animal information on the paper. They had to do all the duplicate work. They had to uh, attach a digital camera and everything. And I only had the travel time here, but if you were to see the work, the duplication of the work, it's easily an hour. If you just take the travel time, we save the county and the citizens 7,800 minutes per year. And that is one of the things we have done for taxpayers, is we are saving the resources and the time of the county employees. And that is one thing we are really proud of as IT department, because ultimately the most important thing is time, and freeing them up to do the stuff they want to do is like, protect animals and stuff like that. Not worry about too much about paperwork, free them up. So, and I'm going to show, uh, still connected. The connection dropped. Let me see. While I'm trying to connect back, do you have any questions so far? Yeah, 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 yeah. Our teammates struggled. Uh, they had to just perceive to just. At some point, I even talked to them like, "Hey, should we be using native ones? Would you have done it faster?" And that was one of the discussions which came. But but I also believe like if you start a project, you just finish it. You don't change unless it's too hard in the technology. You don't change it halfway. Yeah. So we did have the problem. One thing we did change is like we started on WCF, and when we were uploading like pictures, animal care pictures, we were having a lot of problems with WCF, and I don't like WCF honestly. Uh, I love Web API, and we just rewrote all the services. I spent like uh, 1 week or 2 weeks rewriting all the services in Web API for them, and that was so much easier. Yeah. So what are you guys doing though? Are you guys prefer native, or you prefer forms? With the Xamarin, you prefer native or you prefer Xamarin forms based on your experience? Okay. Okay, that's fine. Yeah, 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 yeah. I think if you are doing like with animal care one on the hindsight, right? I think we should have done with iOS. The reason for it is every user they only have iPhones and iPads. right? So then it doesn't make any sense. But it's also good in a way to, oh, computer rebooted itself. Okay, I don't know why I did that. Okay. Uh, so this is Xamarin University. Uh, as you can see, anyone who's trying to learn, go sign up here. It's incredible. A lot of classes here. Uh, you can keep learning forever here. Uh, you can download the projects. You can download videos, code samples, everything. Uh, it's excellent learning resource. It used to be paid resource, I think. Looks like they have made it free, or I'm not sure I'm able to access it because of my MSDN. Uh, Either of the two things. But even when it was paid, I think it was only like $70 a month. That's still not bad to learn something new. So a lot of classes here. Uh, if you are a member of Xamarin University, you can also attend like in live classes, and you can ask teacher the classes. And all these videos are also available on YouTube. So that is a great resource. And let's see. We use TFS, Team Foundation Server. Yeah. So we use TFS and we pair it with Hockey app, the NUGET package Hockey app. I didn't get what you said. Yeah. Uh-huh. Yeah. 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 So we use TFS, Team Foundation Server, and it does the same thing. Um, and for the TFS, I can show you TFS what we have. It's probably quicker to show you that. So you already have seen Xamarin University. I'll show you our deployment. Yeah. Yeah. Is anyone using that? Not yet. Because I keep getting those emails. I keep telling my boss we need to have a story in there, so we need to do it. Yeah, it's like we're going to get there to August or September when we're going to do it. But we have so many projects going on. Yeah, it keeps. Yeah, that is the new one, and it's supposed to have even more better analytics than Hockey app. That's what they say. But I've not seen the costs and the price and everything. Nothing. I've not done any research on that yet. Of course, nothing is ever free. And there are also a lot of nice controls, third-party controls for Xamarin. I think Sync Fusion has pretty awesome controls. Um, I've been trying to convince my manager that we get some of them. Uh, and then also there, I think, Telerik, or which is called Progressive, they have some controls for Xamarin. So they have some uh, companies which are built on it. Um, First time I show you. So that's one of the things I do is like it has to pair to the Mac. It's doing that. Yeah, only one. You just share. We try to save money for the county and citizens. Yeah, we have one, and that is pretty low end. It only actually when I was doing everything, try to set up all the development again. We did this about, it's been live for like 6 7 months now, or maybe 8 months. I tried to redo everything, then I had to Apple changes everything. At the end of it, it said, "Do you want to update this mono?" And I did that. Then after that, I had to update, go to App Store, update App Store, and update security patches. Then I had to update. I could not update Xcode. I had to update operating system to Sierra. Then after that, I had to update uh, Xcode. Then after, it took me like almost a day to recover back. And then I wanted to try the same thing with Visual.Studio 2019. Then again, the same message came, and I'm not trying it right now. I'm not trying it right now. Uh, yeah. Sometimes you just have to be patient with Xamarin. Other thing also is like one thing with Xamarin I would recommend is like if you have your Xamarin thing working, uh, everything's working fine. You don't, unless and until the security NUGET package, don't try to update too much. Because what is the business value you're going to give to users? Every time if you have like 10, 20 screens, every time you try to update a NuGet package and everything, it's very complex and it keeps crashing. Users cannot wait like 1, 2, 3 weeks. If it's security patch and update it, but other packages, think of it because it will take time. It will crash. Uh, so here, this is the automated server, our TFS server. Uh, we build a Xamarin iOS project and it just deploys to the Hockey app. And once we do that, it's automated build. We just queue a build here, the build label from development, then it automatically pushes to the Hockey app. And the Hockey app, when it's going to the Hockey app, when the county employees, they go to their phone or iPad, they already know a new build has come. Then said a new build has come, and then boom, it downloads the new one onto the device, and they're ready to go. Let me see and get the Mac thing to work. That's one of the reasons for which I did the, yeah, looks like the Mac went into the standby too. Yeah. I can't show you the Mac because it went into the standby. That's why I got the screenshots. Uh, but yeah, basically that's the app, the RC Pet Finder app, uh, and 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 when you are working with Mac, let me show you guys. Does the code change? Hmm. It depends, right? First of all, we don't want to release directly the development thing to the production. Uh, the process is like you work in development, you have your dev label, then it goes into QA. QA people test. When that label is approved, the business user says it's okay. Then we go and then we QA build in the production TF production build. Yeah, we don't want to do automatic. Yeah. Yeah, it basically shows them a notification and it starts downloading on there. Yeah, yeah, yeah. We have that too. Yeah, yeah. That's why we have two licenses. Like if you go to, I guess for the county citizens, like all the county citizens, if you want to check your weather conditions, we have a mobile app. Uh, hopefully more people will use it. It Yeah, the county one in the Apple App Store, we have an app called RC Winds. If you go to Apple App Store, this RC Winds app is available, and you can go and you can check it. Uh, the RC Winds app is like where we have to go through all that. We had to make a change, and it took us like almost a month. Then you have to have your certificates, everything in the right way. You have to have everything certificates. Then we had to test it in test flight. Have test flight here. It definitely took us time to release it, and it's called RC Winds. Uh, Basically, in county has about 30 to 40 weather stations, and basically, like right now, these are the live temperature readings in the county right now on this website, and it's also available on the mobile app. So one of the users of this app was like when the storm happened, like when hurricane season comes, for Scana people actually, they called us. They use it seems. I had no idea because you guys were the sponsors in the bottom. Uh, yeah, it seems before they send people on those whatever, I don't know what you call it. Those things used to go up the ladder to fix the poles. Yeah, those trucks, utility trucks, they want to know the speed is not too high because it's a safety thing. So we have this app, and it's also on your phone. Uh, so, so this one we released to the for the citizens in the App Store. Uh, we had to go through all that stuff. Anytime we make a change, it will take us 2 3 weeks, and that's just what we have to do. But for the county employees, we have an enterprise app store. We have to renew for it every year, and we love enterprise app store because we can do build every day, or we can build anytime we want to do it. You know, so yeah, we use Hockey app. By MDM, you mean some kind of a yeah, yeah. Right now it's Hockey app. I think you said Visual Studio, the new one, App Center. Yeah, at the somewhere in November we need to migrate to Visual Studio App Center, and I think we probably will gonna go there uh, because that's recommended by Microsoft. And if you, what in my personal experience, if you're a Microsoft shop, if you're doing a lot of Microsoft stuff, it's easier to do Microsoft stuff if they recommend it rather than reinvent the wheel. Yeah, that's it. Okay, thank you. Uh, Storage. Storage is not much. The it will be like the same thing, like 30 or 40 MB. Like if you were to go to the app, because it's all it creates those DLLs, SDKs, and whatever. It won't be much. Yeah. But when you are building on your machine, it will be a lot. Well, basically you are building it on your PC here. So I normally like solid state hard drive. Uh, I would not even try to not program on not a solid state if I can, because it saves you so much time. And then of course, I'm I'm not with other stuff. i5, i7 have not kept up with it. Honestly, I've not bought a PC. Uh, we have a tech team who buys all that stuff. I have not initially spec'd out or anything. But yeah, I think MacBook, if you're doing MacBook Pro, might be a good one. For my home, I have MacBook Pro, and that is pretty fast. fast. Yeah. I use enterprise, uh, but I'm not sure, but I think it's probably community version should have it, but I don't know. I don't know if community has it or not, but I use enterprise. Yeah, yeah, yeah. I'm not sure, but as you said, probably there in community, but I'm not sure. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Uh, Xamarin Cloud, I have, yeah, I heard about it, but a little bit, but I don't remember much about it. Um, it could be various things. I don't know if the devices are on the cloud or, you know, I'm not sure actually. Um, but if you're building for your own thing, use serverless functions. This is enterprise application for job and stuff like that. So I have to go through all the stuff. But if you are a curious person and if you're learning and you're playing with stuff and all that, use serverless functions, deploy to Azure or AWS. Um, Probably easier to deploy to Azure or Microsoft. But AWS will be cheaper, I think. I'm not sure. But, mhm, yeah, yeah. And then with Azure, if you write serverless functions, you don't have to have servers or anything. It will scale up automatically, but you have to write efficient code. If your code is not efficient, you will get billed a lot of money. So, but you can always set a limit so your money doesn't go over and all that. What updates? Okay, okay. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, yeah. Honestly, I've not done React Native at all. Oh, Xamarin. Yeah, Xamarin updates like sometime it took us like a week or 2 weeks when we did the updates. That's why I'm saying if everything is working fine, unless and if it's security update, just keep coding. Just try to get your project done, because you can't keep chasing technology all the time. Sometimes you, we even like we implemented the whole service request MVC, uh, entity framework, web API, everything. Uh, when I was 2 months into the project, then a lot of .NET Core started coming. A part of me as a programmer wanted to go and try everything new with .NET Core and wanted to rewrite the whole project on .NET Core. But I had to put my programmer love with technology on the side. If you start something, you could never ignore the security part. Always do security updates. But you also have to have focus to take something and just finish it. Yeah. Don't make too many changes. Don't change frameworks, all that stuff. Pick something, just finish it, because the technology will keep changing. Once it is done, then you can, if you have your code in GitHub, or if you have, I have my GitHub also online. I probably will post it here. Whenever I work on the projects, I put my stuff in GitHub. Put your stuff in GitHub. Then you can play with it. You can create your own branch. You can do whatever you want. But when you start something, try to finish it. Try to be a finisher. That's what I tell my team too. Is like the teams like start something, try to finish it. Don't get distracted.
All right. Well, Thank you, Bhanu. Round of applause for Bhanu. Appreciate y'all being here tonight. For those of you who are interested in speaking or know someone who might be interested in sharing something that they've learned, new technology, interesting project, please either see me afterwards, message me on the meetup. We're always looking for people who are willing to share. Other than that, thank you guys and have a great night.